They say the worst betrayals come from the people you trust the most. But what about the betrayals they never see coming? The ones wrapped in silk and secrets, whispered through a screen in the dead of night. I never set out to be that woman. The kind who keeps a double life tucked away like a well-worn diary. And yet, here I am, smiling at my husband over dinner, kissing him goodnight, while an entire world exists just beneath his nose. It started innocently enough. A joke over wine with a friend, a dare I wasn't supposed to take seriously. "Hannah, you could make a fortune," she laughed, scrolling through her phone. "Men would pay just to see you in a tight dress." I rolled my eyes, but later that night, curiosity got the better of me. A few clicks. A faceless profile. A harmless experiment. Then came the first tip, $50 for a simple photo of my legs in sheer stockings. No face. No name. Just a hint of skin and a world of possibilities. It felt like a game at first, something thrilling in a way I hadn't felt in years. The messages poured in, filled with admiration, desire, power. Unlike my husband, these men saw me. Ethan. That's his name. The man I married. The man who barely looks at me anymore. We were happy once, before his business took over his life, before I started feeling like a ghost in my own home. But I never thought I'd get caught. Until tonight. I was curled up on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through my messages when I saw it. A new subscriber. Nothing unusual, until I clicked on the profile. My breath caught. A single word. A message. Hannah. The username? It belonged to Ethan's best friend. My fingers hovered over the screen, my heart hammering in my chest. I blinked, hoping I'd read it wrong. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe it wasn't really him. But the username was familiar. Too familiar. No. No, no, no. A sickening wave of heat crawled up my neck as I clicked on the profile. There wasn't a picture, but there didn't need to be. The name was enough. Ryan. Ethan's best friend. The man who stood beside him at our wedding. The man who sat at our dinner table, laughing at our inside jokes. The man who had just sent me a friend request on Facebook a few days ago. My stomach twisted into knots. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe someone else was using his name. People did that online, right? But if it was him, how long had he been watching? Had he seen everything? Did he know? A new message appeared. Is this really you? The blood drained from my face. My hands trembled as I locked my phone and tossed it onto the coffee table like it was something toxic. This wasn't happening. I squeezed my eyes shut, but I could still see the message burned into my vision. Ryan knew. I sat frozen, barely hearing the sound of the front door unlocking. Ethan was home. I scrambled to grab my phone, shoving it under the couch cushion just as he stepped inside. He looked exhausted, his tie already loosened, his sleeves rolled up. The scent of his cologne mixed with the crisp autumn air drifting in from outside. "Hey," he said, dropping his keys onto the counter. "What's for dinner?" I forced a smile, swallowing the lump in my throat. I was thinking takeout. You okay with Thai? He nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah. Sounds good. I watched him disappear into the bathroom, my pulse still racing. My phone vibrated beneath the cushion. Another message. I could ignore it. Pretend I never saw it. But deep down, I knew that wasn't an option. Ryan wasn't going away. And neither was this secret. I didn't check my phone. I couldn't. Not with Ethan home. Not with my heart still pounding like a war drum in my chest. But the weight of Ryan's message burned in the back of my mind, making it impossible to focus. I moved through the motions of ordering dinner, my fingers clumsy as I tapped through the app. Ethan was in the shower now, the sound of running water filling the silence of our apartment. I had a window. A few minutes. Shaky hands. Deep breath. I reached under the cushion and grabbed my phone. New message from Ryan. Hannah, answer me. I know it's you. I clenched my jaw. My vision tunneled as I stared at the words, bile rising in my throat. He wasn't guessing. He knew. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What was I supposed to say? You got the wrong person? That wouldn't work. He'd seen my content. He recognized me. The water shut off. My head snapped up. I shoved my phone back under the cushion just as Ethan stepped out of the bathroom, rubbing a towel through his damp hair. You okay? His voice was casual, but his eyes flickered over me, sharp and assessing. I forced a laugh, too high-pitched, too tight. Yeah. Just starving. Ethan nodded, but I could tell he didn't fully believe me. Ty should be here soon, I added quickly, moving to set the table just to do something. He didn't press. He never did. That was the thing about Ethan. He noticed when something was off, but he never pried. Maybe he thought I'd tell him when I was ready. Maybe he didn't want to know. But Ryan wanted answers. And he wasn't going to stop until he got them. Later that night. Ethan had fallen asleep hours ago, his steady breathing filling the quiet of our bedroom. But I was still wide awake, staring at the ceiling, every nerve in my body on edge. I had to talk to Ryan. I had to control this before it spiraled out of hand. Slipping out of bed, I padded into the living room, barely daring to breathe as I retrieved my phone from beneath the cushion. My hands were slick with sweat as I opened the app. Ryan was still online. Still waiting. Meet me tomorrow, I typed before I could second-guess myself. Somewhere private. You can't tell Ethan. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then. See you at 8. My place. Don't be late. My hands trembled as I locked my phone. I had no idea what Ryan wanted. But something told me this was just the beginning. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's name on my screen, his words burning in my mind like embers waiting to ignite. By morning, I was running on caffeine and adrenaline, my nerves stretched thin as I watched Ethan get ready for work. He stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. You okay? He asked, catching my reflection in the mirror. I forced a smile. Yeah, just tired. Ethan studied me for a second longer, then leaned down and kissed my forehead. Get some rest today. I nodded, but rest was the last thing I had planned. As soon as he walked out the door, I was moving. A quick shower. A simple outfit, jeans, sweater, something that wouldn't make me stand out. If I was going to Ryan's place, I didn't want to look like the woman he had been watching online. I wanted to be Hannah, Ethan's wife, not the woman I became on that secret account. But no matter what I wore, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to step into something I couldn't control. The knock on his door felt heavier than it should have. A few seconds later, it swung open. Ryan stood there, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. His dark eyes flickered over me, unreadable. He looked the same as always, casual, confident, but there was something else there now. Something sharp. Something dangerous. You actually came, he murmured, stepping aside to let me in. I hesitated for half a second before crossing the threshold. His apartment smelled like coffee and faint cologne. It was cleaner than I expected, modern and uncluttered. The blinds were half drawn, keeping the morning sun at bay. The door clicked shut behind me, and suddenly, it felt too quiet. Too intimate. Say something, he said, watching me too closely. I took a breath. How long have you known? Ryan's lips twitched, almost amused. A while. My stomach tightened. Why didn't you say anything? He tilted his head, considering me. Because I was waiting to see how far you'd go. A chill ran down my spine. You think this is funny? I snapped, folding my arms to keep them from shaking. His smirk faded. No. I think it's interesting. I swallowed hard. What do you want, Ryan? He stepped closer, just enough to make my pulse spike. That depends, Hannah, he murmured. What are you willing to give to keep Ethan from finding out? My breath caught. There it was. The threat beneath the surface. Ryan wanted something. And I had a terrible feeling I already knew what it was. I felt the space between us shrink, the air thick with something I couldn't name. Ryan's eyes darkened, his head tilting slightly as if he was reading my every thought. I wanted to believe this was some kind of sick joke, that he was toying with me before revealing he had no intention of exposing me. But then he said it. Have sex with me, he murmured, like it was the most casual request in the world. My breath hitched. What? You heard me. He took a slow step forward. You want this to stay between us? That's my price. My stomach twisted into a painful knot. Are you out of your mind? He smirked, as if my shock entertained him. Maybe. But that doesn't change the situation, does it? I shook my head, backing up instinctively, my body pressing against the edge of his kitchen counter. I'm not doing that, Ryan. I don't know what you think this is, but... You don't know what I think? He let out a dry chuckle, shaking his head. Come on, Hannah. I know exactly what this is. You've been lying to your husband, playing innocent while men throw money at you for your body. And now that I know the truth, you suddenly want to draw the line. I clenched my jaw. This is different. Ryan's smirk faded, and his expression hardened. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you're already cheating on Ethan, just not physically. I sucked in a sharp breath. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. I've seen you, Hannah. I've seen what you do. The way you look at the camera. The way you let men fantasize about you. His eyes flickered over me, making my skin crawl. Tell me, do you ever think about Ethan when you do it? I slapped him. Hard. The sound cracked through the silence, and for a brief second, Ryan actually looked surprised. I stepped back, breathing hard, my hands shaking. Screw you, Ryan. I am not sleeping with you. He exhaled slowly, rolling his jaw. Then, to my horror, he smiled. All right, he said smoothly, rubbing his cheek. Then I guess I'll just have to tell Ethan. The blood drained from my face. Ryan took out his phone and held it up between us. One text. That's all it takes. His thumb hovered over the screen. How do you think he'll react when I send him a link to your little side hustle? My heart pounded so loudly I could barely think. You wouldn't, I whispered, but even as I said it, I knew I was wrong. Ryan's grin widened. Try me. I felt my entire world start to crack beneath my feet. This wasn't just about some stupid messages. If Ethan found out, it would destroy everything. My marriage. My life. The life we built. And Ryan knew it. He had me trapped. I won't sleep with you, I said again, my voice weaker this time. Ryan exhaled, as if considering his next move. Then he shrugged. Fine. But that means you're gonna have to give me something else. I swallowed. What do you want? His lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. I'll let you know soon. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I had no idea what I had just agreed to. But I knew one thing for sure. Ryan wasn't going to let me walk away from this. I barely remembered leaving Ryan's apartment. My mind was a whirlwind, my body running on autopilot as I walked to my car, hands shaking as I gripped the wheel. The city moved around me, people going about their lives as if the ground hadn't just crumbled beneath my feet. Ryan had me trapped. He held my secret in the palm of his hand, waiting for the right moment to tighten his grip and crush everything I had left. For the first time since this all started, I saw the truth. I was never in control. Not of the money. Not of the power. Not of the men who worshipped me through a screen. And certainly not of Ryan. There was only one way out. I had to tell Ethan. The thought alone made me sick. I could already see the look on his face, the anger, the disappointment, the disgust. Would he even look at me the same way? Or would this be the thing that broke us? But I didn't have a choice. If Ryan had his way, Ethan wouldn't hear it from me, he'd hear it from him. And I refused to give that bastard the satisfaction. I drove home in a daze, my hands cold against the steering wheel. My pulse pounded in my ears as I pulled into our driveway, my stomach twisting so violently I thought I might throw up. Ethan's truck was there. He was home early. Good. This needed to happen now. I stepped inside, heart slamming against my ribs. Ethan was in the kitchen, sipping a beer, flipping through his phone. When he looked up and saw me, he smiled, just for a second, before his expression shifted. Hannah. He set his beer down, brow furrowing. What's wrong? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to jump with no idea if I'd survive the fall. Hannah. His voice was sharper now, concerned. He walked toward me, placing a hand on my arm. Talk to me. Tears stung my eyes. I sucked in a shaky breath. I have to tell you something. And you're going to hate me for it. Ethan's entire body tensed. Okay. I swallowed hard, my throat burning. I've been lying to you. His jaw clenched, but he didn't say anything. He just stared at me, waiting. I forced myself to keep going. For months now, I sucked in another breath, squeezing my eyes shut for half a second before meeting his gaze again. I've been running an OnlyFans account. Silence. The kind that stretches too long, too heavy, suffocating the air between two people. Ethan just stared at me. His face unreadable. Then, what? My vision blurred. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It started as a stupid experiment, and then people started paying, and... Jesus Christ, Hannah. He took a step back like I had physically hit him. He ran a hand over his face, shaking his head. You're telling me my wife has been selling herself to strangers online? Are you fucking serious? Tears slipped down my cheeks. It wasn't like that. Then what the hell was it? He snapped, his voice raw with betrayal. Because from where I'm standing, it sure as hell feels like you've been cheating on me. I flinched. I never touched anyone, Ethan. You didn't have to, he spat. His fists clenched at his sides, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. You let other men see you. Want you. And you hid it from me. I could feel the pieces of us breaking, shattering beyond repair. But I had one more thing to say. Ryan found out, I whispered. Ethan's entire body stiffened. What? I swallowed hard. Ryan found my account. He messaged me. My voice cracked. He tried to blackmail me, Ethan. Something dark flashed in his eyes. What did he want? I hesitated. Ethan noticed. His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. What did he want? I exhaled shakily. He wanted to sleep with me in exchange for keeping quiet. A muscle in Ethan's jaw twitched. His breathing slowed, and for a moment, he didn't move. Then he turned, grabbed his keys, and stormed toward the door. My heart stopped. Ethan, wait. I ran after him, grabbing his arm. Please don't. He yanked away from me, his eyes burning with something I had never seen before. Stay here, Hannah. His voice was ice. I'm going to fix this. And then he was gone. I didn't know how long I sat on the couch, curled up, waiting. Waiting for the sound of Ethan's truck. Waiting for a call. Waiting for something to tell me that this nightmare was over. Then, finally. Bang bang bang. The door nearly flew off the hinges. I jumped up, my heart in my throat. I barely had time to react before Ethan stalked inside. His fists were raw, his knuckles busted and bleeding. His chest heaved, his hair a mess, his face twisted in fury. I gasped. Ethan. It's done. His voice was still filled with rage, but beneath it, something else. Something final. I rushed toward him, my hands hovering near his bruised fists. What did you do? He scoffed, wiping his split knuckles on his jeans. I beat the ever-loving shit out of him, that's what I did. My stomach twisted. Is he? He's alive, Ethan growled. But he won't be walking straight for a while. His eyes flickered up to mine, and for the first time that night, something in his expression softened. And he sure as hell won't be bothering you again. Tears welled in my eyes. I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve him. I'm so sorry, I choked out, shaking my head. Ethan let out a breath, then reached for me. His fingers curled around my wrist, pulling me against his chest. I expected anger. I expected rejection. Instead, he just held me. Don't ever lie to me again, Hannah, he murmured against my hair. I clung to him. I won't. His arms tightened. We'll get through this, he whispered, his voice softer now. And in that moment, despite everything I had done, despite the damage I had caused, I believed him.